Well, thanks for being here today for SPAR's Better and Better podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to talk beyond the stats. I am Jennifer Kovacic. I'm the staff liaison, as you both know, for the SPAR Communications Committee. And it's great to have you. Jordan Potts, you're with?
Yeah, I'm with Movement Mortgage. Joined the SPAR Communications Committee a couple weeks ago and got asked to come and join today. Super excited to be here and just to be able to sit and chit-chat for a little while.
Yeah, and it's great to have you. And Susan, this is your second time doing a podcast.
Yes, thanks for having me. Susan Moore here, Remax Advantage Plus. This is my second time doing this. I'm really excited. I really loved it the last time. I'm glad to be back.
Well, good. Well, we're going to, as you kind of both know, jump in, talk a little bit about the most recent statistics that came out, and then I will ask you both some questions and would love to get some of your experiences to enhance what we talk about. So these statistics are something that the St. Paul and Minneapolis associations work on together every month. And we present these not only to members and not only available on websites, but we share with local media and have some stories. So we thought we'd just kind of dive in and give an overview. Nationally, sales of existing homes fell to a 7% low as rising borrower costs and sales prices, coupled with limited inventory, continue to keep many would-be buyers out of the market. Closer to home, and specifically in the Twin Cities region, new listings decreased 6.4% to 5,663, and this is for the September 2023 overview. We're always looking a month back. In addition, pending sales were down 7.3%, closings were down 17.1%, and pending sales 7.3%. And inventory levels were down 9.4% to 8,704 units from the same time as just a year ago. Because both buyer and seller activity is down in tandem, we're seeing prices continue to rise, resulting in the market remaining tight. In the past, we've seen supply levels increase as demand falls, often resulting in more favorable prices, but that isn't the case currently, as I know you both know. And furthermore, we aren't seeing as many sellers wanting to list. They're locked into their low interest rates and reluctant to give them up. And for many qualified buyers who are seeking to move and successful in their home buying journey, they're locking in with the expectation to refinance when the time is right for them. So, Jordan, I want to ask you, as a loan officer, I know you work close with realtors. Since you've been in this business, what are some of the biggest changes you've seen? You know, let's talk recent months or even years, whatever you think makes the most sense for perspective.
Well, I think it's an important question to ask just right now because within the last year and a half, we've seen changes are constant, right? The market is always shifting and changing. And so as loan officers and realtors, we have to be able to, pivot and adjust our practices and approaches to help support our borrowers to make sure that we're getting people to their goals. And so one of the areas that I think we've seen a shift is in the rise of borrowers who are opting for more of the government loan options, the USDA, the FHA, the VA types of loans, and also down payment assistance as well. We've just seen a larger influx of borrowers coming to us interested in those programs, considering those as maybe a more viable option for them as opposed to the conventional options. And I think it's just because a lot of times we're seeing that the government-backed loans are a little bit more easily accessible to borrowers with lower down payment requirements. We also saw earlier this year that HUD reduced the annual mortgage insurance premiums down from 0.85 to 0.55, which is allowing borrowers to have lower monthly payments and maybe just look into homeownership as an option for them that they never thought of before.
Sure.
And that is affordable for them. So, I would also just say, just from numbers wise, if we're going beyond the stats, we look at the stats, we're seeing that FHA loans now this year are at about 14.5% of the total mortgage applications that are coming through, which compared to, I think it's like 2 years ago, we were only at about 10%. Okay. So, we're seeing that happen within the market. And now I think it's just time to adjust our practices to be able to fit, people being interested in FHA, VA, USDA, and accommodating those desires for our borrowers to the listing agents and educating everybody on why those are good options for the borrower.
Yeah, no, that's really great news. You are spurring a question. Do you know how borrowers are learning what the different options are out there?
Well, social media has a big impact on what buyers know. We have borrowers who are coming to us saying, I heard on TikTok that there's down payment assistance options available, or that they saw on Facebook that FHA or HUD reduced the mortgage insurance premiums. And so social media has a big effect on that. But we are always trying to educate our borrowers by saying, okay, what are you coming to us with as your goals? Is it the lowest monthly payment you can get? Is it the highest purchase price you can get? What is the goal? And from there, then we'll kind of assess, okay, is this a better FHA option? Because maybe they didn't know.
Sure.
It was an option for them.
That's great. Yeah, it's interesting how social media just plays a part in everything right now.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Well, with millennials now in their prime homeownership years and a lot of seniors looking to downsize for whatever reason, space, cost, etc., and just finding limited options, reports are indicating that more buyers are choosing to use cash to avoid the close to 8% interest rates. And I realize that cash isn't something that everybody can necessarily have as an option, but I'm just curious, what are the trends you're seeing or experiencing in your role?
Yeah, from the lending side, we're seeing, again, more government loan options being looked into by our borrowers. But for the most part, this might be a little bit obvious, but for the most part, we are not seeing very many millennial home buyers have the ability to purchase a home with cash, right? And one of the greatest barriers to entry that we see for home buyers is the down payment. And so that can be something that's very daunting. The amount of cash on hand for a lot of millennials and people of the young generation is dwindling with the higher credit card balances and, inflation and all of that. So we're really working towards educating borrowers on, you don't need a 20% down payment to get into homeownership. You don't need to have the most amazing credit profile of all time to get into homeownership. Those barriers to entry maybe can be possible to overcome for a lot of our millennial borrowers who are scared and not knowing what they can accomplish. Because even earlier we were talking about how, all the numbers are down, right? Pending sales are down, closings were down, inventory levels were down. Right. And that can sound really scary, but it's still possible. And so we're working with our millennial borrowers to empower them to just try. Whether it takes 2 months or 2 years, let's try it out and see how we can get there. But with the baby boomers, cash on hand is also kind of a barrier for them as well, because maybe their equity is caught up in an asset that they've already got, like their home, and they don't want to give up their home to downsize because maybe they want to leave a legacy for future generations of their family or whatever the reason may be. But we've seen a lot of conversations come into play about reverse mortgages and how seniors can, get into a new home that's maybe a little bit more comfortable for them without the worry of having this daunting monthly payment that's got 8% interest on it. The reverse mortgage is definitely an option that we've been looking into more closely. So those are just some of the ways I think that we're getting a little bit more creative and helping move people around.
Yeah. Well, I love the idea that there could be some positive surprises for some of the people looking. And just, you also said, even if it's something you can't do right now tangibly, you can have a plan in place. Yeah. And I think, that probably provides a nice answer for some people just to know something they can work toward.
Definitely.
And as you both know, we've seen prices pretty much every month increase, although we had a few more flat months earlier this year and some modest gains in other months. This is kind of a little did you know tidbit. Did you know there has been only 1 month of year-over-year price decline since 2012? That was in May of this year when prices dipped 0.7%, and even then, sellers were receiving offers over their list price by 101%, which is Just kind of a fun fact to share. Susan, I have a question for you. I guess curious to know how long you've been a realtor, but also what are you experiencing right now with your work in regard to clients buying or selling homes? What's kind of going on in your world?
Okay, so I just had an anniversary. I've been a realtor for 17 years.
Oh, wow.
in
Nice.
September.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, yeah.
Woot, woot. But okay, so what I'm seeing here, so my experience with people wanting to buy right now, what I do tell people, it's still a great time to buy no matter what. People always need a place to live. So either you buy in the marketers right now, and either you get your own equity or you give someone else's their equity. So it's either you buy or you rent. So either you're renting, you're giving someone else's the equity, or you buy, you get your own. Okay, so that's what I tell people. I try to coach them into home ownership. Home ownership, I always think, is a great way to build generational wealth.
Absolutely.
So that is my tidbit when I speak to people. I try to coach them in many aspects of home ownership. So I always think it's always better to own your own if you can afford it than to purchase. So even though you're going through the rental process, you still go through the credit process. So if you have this much money to put down to rent, I'm sure you can go through the same processing to purchase a home. I always try to get them into a home before I could get them a rental.
Sure. Well,
Okay.
and especially with some of these programs out there.
Especially,
Oh,
yes,
yeah.
exactly. Especially what Jordan was saying, because there's so many down payment assistance programs that could get them into a home versus renting. Okay, so I always try to do the role reversal because there's all those programs out there
Sure.
that could get them into a house. And with credit building, I always try to get them into building their credits, build their credit up
Yeah.
to get them into a home.
Yeah, I think it's important to just start the conversation. Like I was saying earlier, if you have a consultation with someone who has reservations,
Exactly.
it's more so just getting them to a point where they can figure out a way to get over those reservations and get into
Exactly. And some of them don't know.
Yeah,
it's
they
when
really
they
don't
don't
know.
know. So that's where the education comes in, because they didn't know I could do this. Oh, could I do this? And when they realize it's not that difficult, then they're like, oh, wow, no one told me. I like to
Yeah.
hear when someone said, no one told me this. And that's when the disconnect was, and then they're like, oh, they get it.
Yeah, they get it now.
The
It
light bulb
clicks.
goes out, and they're like, wow. And that's what I like
Yeah.
to see. Yeah.
Well, one of my questions I was going to pose to you was, how do you get that momentum going? And it sounds like in some ways, just that conversation is momentum in itself.
Yeah.
So, what are some tips or some kind of tricks of the trade or conversation that you have that might help other realtors in this kind of process working with their clients?
Well, some of the things, I kind of try to get the personal feel with people. I become friendly with them. Like I have this, I don't know, it's the way I speak with people. I bring myself to their level instead of let them come to mine. I can bring myself down to them most of the time. Well, all of the time. I don't let them learn my jargon. I bring myself down to them, and I let them
kind of put yourself in
put
their
them
shoes.
in their shoes.
Yeah.
And I always find something that they've said to make me, like there's always something I could refer to in their language, in their life. And like, oh, and then they're like, oh, okay. And we have a conversation, and I always bring it to them in there that, relates to them.
Sure.
Okay, and then they relate, and then we have that conversation, and then I, make it all about them. And when you make it all about them, then they respond.
Yeah. Probably
When it's
building
all-
some trust in the
Exactly.
process.
So I build that trust, and it makes it all about them. And when it's all about them, then you get that relationship building.
That's great.
So that's how I do it. So it brings that trust building.
Well, and then I suppose too, with both of your
Yeah.
jobs, you're building trust and that relationship
Oh,
with your
for
clients
sure.
together too.
I mean,
Yes.
this is scary for them, and
It is.
it's unfamiliar territory. So getting to their level and investing the time and energy into helping them get where they want to go is something that they'll appreciate and be able to trust you in the future with, hopefully.
Exactly. And I always make that one client, every single client, and make them all feel like they're the only client.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I never make them think, oh, I have someone else. They are always the only one. That's the only person that I'm dealing with.
Yeah.
So I always give them the same attention that I give the other one. Doesn't matter who they are. I give them the same attention, and I make them always feel that they are the only one.
Well, I know as a client, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, me too.
So that's my
great.
thing. Mm-hmm.
Well, shifting gears just slightly, Jordan, last week it was reported in several media outlets that investors are betting that the Federal Reserve, which has raised interest rates to their highest levels in 22 years, may finally, as probably is good news to a lot of people, be finished raising rates. Can you comment or offer any perspective on this?
I mean, I think it would be a great light at the end of the tunnel for the rate hikes to halt. I am not a very big gambler or a bettor on anything. I don't have a crystal ball, so I'm not entirely sure where rates are going to go. But I think one thing we can definitely watch to see, what might happen, and one indicator within the market is, where inflation is at, because inflation is a huge indicator of where interest rates are going to be at and where they're going to go. So as we keep our eyes on the market and as we go into what will be election year next year, just keeping our eyes on inflation and all of those numbers, we can't necessarily take the market gurus' crystal ball predictions and bets as gold. We have to be able to do that research ourselves and make sure that we know that our borrowers and our buyers can afford what they're purchasing based off of where the rates are at right now.
Right.
Instead of what they could be in the future, because you never know.
Yeah.
Exactly. No
And
one
I'm
has a
sure
crystal ball.
I'll be watching those headlines pretty
Yeah.
close.
Oh, yeah.
So would I.
We all will, hopefully.
Yes. So kind of pivoting back to you, Susan, how do you coach your clients in doing what's best for them, even if now isn't the right time for them to be a buyer or be a seller? How do you coach them to just kind of see that light going forward with what is best for their situation?
Well, if they're not in the position right now to buy and they want to buy, hold off. I mean, no sense rushing them, pushing them to do something they cannot afford, or that's not the right time. I just, let them wait if they could wait. If they can wait, let them wait. If it's not the right time, it's not the right time. They could always wait. But if they could wait, if they could buy, they can buy now and refinance later. But if they cannot wait, if they need to wait, it's always the best thing to wait.
Yeah.
No sense pushing into something that you're going to foreclose on.
Well, exactly.
But,
Do you end up working with some clients and, you start out with a plan and then they come back?
Yeah. If they're not ready, and I have a lot of people that I'm incubating, and they're just waiting. Not that they're waiting because of rates, they're waiting because I've had people that fell out because of rates.
Sure.
And we are waiting for later, and then we'll get back into it. And then I have people that are just waiting it out.
Sometimes maybe waiting for that just right property or
the
location.
right property. It's the right property and location. That's what we're waiting for. And I have some people I have some out-of-towners that are coming in that I will buy now with a lot of money to put down.
Sure.
I have those people that are still there waiting for that right property.
What's kind of the pulse you're seeing on the seller side of things?
Some of the sellers are just waiting it out. I'm not sure what they're waiting for.
Do you see, we talked a little bit earlier just about some of them not wanting to let go of that
The
interest
rates,
rate.
some of them are not willing to. Some of them are not willing to let go of the interest rates, and some of them are just. Some will sell because they have to move. Some people selling because they have to move, and only a few of them that will hold on to the interest rates that they have.
Okay.
And the others will move because they have to move. There are only a few of them that will hold on to the interest rates. There are not many that are holding on to the interest rates. Some of them are just holding on because they don't want to move.
I was kind of just curious with the interest rate because you hear so many
Yeah.
different things, and if that was like a big factor, but
No,
it sounds like
it's-
just
yeah.
in a few.
Yeah, there's not many of them that are holding on to the rates that I've seen. They're just, a lot of them are just, they're moving because they have to move. Yeah.
With this market where prices are a little bit higher and inventory is a little bit more scarce, what kinds of concessions are you seeing people willing to make?
I see people are willing to pay concessions right now, especially
Yeah.
this time of the year. People are paying concessions so that buyers will make a purchase.
Have a bigger incentive to come, incentive to come and purchase. their home.
Exactly. They're making bigger concessions so that buyers will, especially this time of the year.
Yeah,
They
we're
are
seeing that too quite a
motivated
bit.
sellers.
And
Okay.
we've seen on listings, being advertised as seller is willing to contribute to a temporary buy down. And, I think that's great. It does create a lot of buzz, I think, around the listing and a lot of interest from buyers. We just had a buyer last week go under contract for a property where the seller was offering a temporary buy down to pay for it for the buyer. And it was great. But at the end of the day, we determined that using those funds just to reduce the amount of cash that they were bringing to the closing table was actually a little bit more beneficial to them because they could then take that money that they were going to be using for their down payment or for the cash to close for their closing costs, whatever it might be, to pay off other debts that were at a higher interest rate than what their mortgage was going to be. So if we've got buyers who are, deep in credit card debt, which we're seeing with inflation, being able to have that option to reduce the amount of funds that you're bringing to the closing table and maybe go off and pay some of those accounts that have 18, 19, 20% interest rates. That is one bright side to the slower market right now, is that we have a little bit more power on the buy side to be able to get those concessions and
I was going to say that must be
contributions.
kind of fun in your
It is,
business to come up with some of these creative
It's always-
solutions for folks.
It's always a treat when we see in there that there's money coming from the sellers because we didn't see that for so long.
Exactly.
And so it's like it's like Christmas morning when that happens. It's like, oh my gosh, they have $5,000 to work with. How can we use it?
Yeah, sure.
Very fun. Well, I'm going to turn back a little bit more to our stats snapshot and look at some of the different kinds of property types and what we're seeing in the local market. Overall, pending sales were down from a year ago by 22.2%. That accounts for a 23.8% decrease in single-family homes, a 15% dip in townhomes, and a 21.4% decrease in condos. Previously owned sales were down 12%, and new construction sales were up 44.8%, which probably isn't terribly surprising with everything we're seeing around. As for sellers, there were 5,663 properties on the market in September, and buyers signed 3,686 purchase agreements. The month supply of inventory rose 15% to 2.3 months, which we haven't seen for some time. And just to put into context, a balanced market is 4 to 6 months of supply. I'm curious to know if any of these numbers here surprise you guys a little bit, or if you have any thoughts you want to share.
Actually, 4 to 6 months used to be. There are hardly any homes. I don't see that many homes staying in the market that long. I
Yeah.
haven't seen that in a long time.
In a long time?
No. This is a rarity that homes stay on the market that long. If it's on the market that long, we want to know what's wrong with that house.
Yeah,
It
that
stayed
would
on
be the
market-
first question that I
exactly,
think would
what
be in
is
my
wrong
head.
with that house? That was like years ago when you see a house that long, but now it's on the market for 4 weeks. You're like, what is wrong with that house?
Yeah. Well, and considered balance in
Back.
terms of,
Yeah.
that's what you'd want to have to call it a balanced market. But you're right. It's
Yeah.
been a really long time
Yeah.
since we've seen that.
Exactly.
So I'm curious, just a little bit of fun here. What are some of the client experiences that you've had that are most memorable in your respective fields?
Let me see.
Just kind of why does the story or experience stay with you?
Yeah, for for myself, I mean, the best days are always the closing days because it's just so triumphant. And we work with a lot of first-time home buyers, and I'm of the age where my friends are buying homes, and so I get to work with them through the process and see where they start and where they end up, which has been really exciting. But one of the most memorable closings that I've had so far happened just a couple months ago. It was a single mom who she'd been shopping for months on end. I think maybe she had started in like December of last year, and in May was when we had closed. And it was just so much patience that was required on her end to be able to keep persevering through the numerous different offers that she made. And so we got to closing day, and she was like dancing throughout the entire closing room. It was so exciting. It was just so joyful. And there was other people within the title company coming over and just celebrating with her. And it was a exciting and just really triumphant time to be able to see her buy that home for her family, for her kids, because she truly never, she wanted to give up so many times. And we just kept pushing her, and, she made it there. So
That's awesome. That's fun.
yeah.
One of my most memorable closings was a late 70s old elderly couple, very first time owning a home, and they cried. It was there. I have many memorable ones, but this one stood out to me because they said they were very first time ever owning a house, and they said they never thought they were ever going to own a house, and they cried, and they made me cry, and it was such a happy feeling. And when they got into that house and I saw them so happy, and they were in their 70s, and they were aesthetic. And I was their best friend forever. And I would visit them after that, and they're like, Susan, this is the best thing that ever happened to us. They were the first generation in their family that ever had their own home. Wow. And I never had such a feeling.
I love that
after
story. That's fun.
Me too.
And they're so happy. And so that was one of my best feelings, to see these people so happy. And it was not a very large house, but to them,
it was theirs.
Heaven. And that was one of the most memorable and the happiest ones.
Yeah, that is a great. You don't hear that very often.
No, it was the
Buying your
happiest
first home
feeling.
at 70.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I think we should end on that good feeling.
Yeah, definitely.
Two great stories to wrap up. The one thing I want to just conclude with, I know this is beyond the stats. We go a little bit beyond statistics. And I just wanted to share, as you have probably seen, if you come into SPAR right now, there are little yellow ducks everywhere throughout the building. The reason those are there is the month of November, we are again doing Thanksgiving back. And this year, as SPAR and our 8,000 members, we are collecting bars of soap. So I know there are groups and brokerages and committees and individuals, but it's just one of those fun things. And if we can collect them, we will be distributing all these bars of soap throughout SPAR's 12 county service area. And we have identified food shelves and nonprofits in each county throughout the service area, which will be the recipients. So it should be fun and just like a great team building opportunity.
Yeah, and the ducks are cute too.
The ducks are cute. So take one home if you would like. They are pretty cute.
Thank you.
So, well, thank you, Jordan,
Yeah,
Susan.
thank you.
Great to
This
have
was
you.
fun.
Thanks for
Thanks for
having
having
us. Yeah, thank you.